Welcome. Day 3.
Thanks very much for coming. It's great to see you with day 3. So for those of you just joining us for the first time, welcome. And for those veterans who are back for the 3rd day, thanks for sticking with us. So we've had a lot of fun so far, and today is sort of like the culmination of the 3 days. We're really looking forward to presenting some pretty cool stuff today about mental training and the mindset of how we can get the best out of ourselves, and then how we can invest back into ourselves and complete the circle.
I think by now you guys know us, but Andrew, you want
to... For those who have somehow got hold of this link and are just dropping in for the first time, I'm Rupal Bain. I'm the principal here in the LA Phil, and I teach at the Colburn Conservatory. One of the reasons for doing this project and for us creating Invested Musician is to build an understanding that you know, just because I have a job in a pretty fantastic orchestra, it doesn't mean that I landed there from the beginning. You know, I had a interesting story of how I came to becoming in the position that I am in LA. And I wanted to, you know, give back to our horn community and show that, you know, it takes a lot of work and there's a lot of bumps along the way, but we don't have to, you know, sort of be 18 and feel as though, yes, my destiny is to play in the Berlin Philharmonic. We can go through a lot of iterations of ourselves to get to the level that, you know, that we hopefully dream to one day. So I've been playing horn for 35 years now. When I started in the beginning of high school, and that's pretty much it. And Rupal is an MBA. She's also an engineer. She doesn't like to admit that too much, but she's a mechanical engineer trained. She's also a Master of Environmental Science and has worked for companies such as GE and Ford and the Energy Coalition here in Los Angeles. She's you know, very passionate about business and sharing ideas with people, and so together we created this business called the Invested Musician to share our ideas and our experiences, and hopefully bring people to the next level of their careers.
All right, so just a quick overview of what we, you know, day 1 we talked about routines and a bit of career and finances, specifically how to use that earn system to reduce your spending and redirect money towards the things that really matter. Yesterday, we got into the musical bridges that Andrew was talking about, from technique to mastery. And I talked about taxes, specifically around ways that we can increase our deductions. And today, we're going to get into the mental game. I'll let Andrew just talk a little bit about that. And then investing in yourself and how you can do that when we're faced with some really difficult changes in the industry, and what we've learned through all of our years of experience, and we're excited to share with you.
The mental game what we're going to cover is actually basically my journey from someone who really struggled mentally with dealing with the pressures of the job and dealing with auditions, and someone who actually, you know, when I was younger, I couldn't figure out auditions and performing, and in fact I just had assumed and had made the decision that I just wasn't any good at auditions. I was just one of those people who wasn't very good at auditions. And so how I discovered that I could be good at auditions, and how I actually decided that I was going to be good at auditions, and what tools that we can use, and what tools we can use on a daily and a weekly basis to improve our playing, improve our productivity and our practice, and also deal with the nerves and the stress that comes with playing concerts and playing in a job. So it'll be a quick trip, but hopefully there'll be some useful information.
Yeah, and you know, as you're kind of looking at these topics, just as we mentioned yesterday, these are, you know, a few aspects. We wanted to give you kind of some interesting insight into areas that we thought you could get some quick wins on, and you'd find some results quickly. But yeah, just recognizing it's part of this bigger picture, and it's actually something we've been working on. I'll let Andrew talk more about it. We discussed it yesterday a little bit, but yeah.
Yeah, we're really excited about this. We have put together a pretty comprehensive course that we feel is going to help a lot of people to raise their playing to another level, give them the skills that they need to compete and play at a high level in auditions, and also stabilize their career and move their career to another level. Whether you're a student, whether you're a freelancer, whether you're already in an orchestra job, these are all definitely possible things that will help you move to the next level by being involved in this program. So it's an 8-week course that is online, and it will involve direct contact with me, direct individual lessons with me, group lessons, and group sessions that are going to be working on our playing, as well as musicality, mental training. And then we also will break into preparation, like very individualized work with training for audition preparation, performance preparation, and the mental game, how we technically will develop. So there's a lot of stuff to do. The timing of this course that we feel is important for everyone, because come the end of August, September, a lot of seasons will begin. Starting orchestras will be going back. Work will start up again. I know I saw an article yesterday where Abbey Road is back open for studio recording. So and there are a lot more concerts coming online. So we felt this was a good time for people to go through a really intensive course, move their playing to a new level, so that when things open back up for playing and when school goes back, you're hitting the ground running. So we're pretty excited about it. A quick addition into obviously the musical stuff, for those people who are freelancers, or even in my position, where I've got a job but also do a lot of playing outside. Understanding the business side of things, getting an understanding of how businesses operate, how to interact with businesses, how to negotiate with people. These are really important things at whatever stage of your career you're at. If you win an orchestra job, the first thing that someone said to me when I won the LA Phil job is, "Do you have a lawyer?" Not that we're providing legal services, but the contract that I have with the Philharmonic and most people have with major orchestras is actually quite complex to negotiate. And so understanding how that process works, understanding how you can negotiate, what you can negotiate, and what the other side is like. And this is an important thing to understand also in terms of audition training, is what is the other side thinking about? How do you provide for what the other side wants? So what is the panel looking for in an audition? What are your employers looking for in someone who wants to work? So hopefully we can provide some pretty significant insight into that over the course of the 8 weeks. Okay, so the mental game, whether we like it or not, we're playing a mental game when we're performing, and your brain is doing a lot of crazy things. And the goal of this is hopefully to understand a little bit about how your brain is operating, and maybe how to have a little bit of control over your situation. So my story starts when in my first job in the Adelaide Symphony. I was the associate principal, so I would play the first half of concerts, and I was very inexperienced, had very little orchestral experience, had really never played in an orchestra very much. I'd come from a background of playing musicals. Before I got the job in the ASO, I played 10 months, 8 shows a week, Beauty and the Beast, Broadway musical, which was a lot of fun, but basically playing to pretty much a click track for 8 2.5-hour shows a week. So I got into the ASO, and I was really fish out of water, and I really didn't understand a lot about how to play an orchestra. And I went through a stage early on in that process where I would be sitting on stage before a concert and basically be a few seconds away from being physically ill. I was that nervous and that stressed, and I just didn't know how to cope with it. And without me realizing that I was actually, involving myself in the first steps of a mental game, I made a conscious decision that I was going to make sure that I enjoyed my playing in concert. It wasn't that important that I should get that stressed. And I made a decision to say to myself, if I can't solve this in 6 months, then I need to move on to another profession, because it just wasn't sustainable. So I made a conscious decision that no matter what happened, I was going to focus on enjoying myself before the concert and do the best that I could. And if it wasn't perfect, it was fine. And then, you know, we'll see what happens from there. And of course, the result was that my mind was a lot quieter. I was a lot happier at performing. I still made mistakes, but I found that I made less mistakes. And I found that I worried less about those mistakes. So this was the first, you know, sort of iteration of my sort of dipping my toe into the mental game. I still wasn't aware that I was playing a mental game, but I was lucky enough to sort of stumbled on this thinking. So the second stage of my mental journey was when I was doing auditions in Germany. This was probably about 5 years later. And, oh, by the way, has anyone suffered that where they're sitting on stage just completely freaking out? It's not a nice feeling. And it's basically, I mean, it's normal human reaction because we have this fight or flight. When we, you know, the human brain has a fight or flight mechanism. You're either going to fight the situation or you're going to run away from it. And unfortunately, when you're sitting on a chair on stage and there are 100 of your closest friends sitting around you, you can't do either. You can't fight them because that probably wouldn't, you know, produce great music. And you can't run away. I mean, I suppose you could, but you can't play the concert then. So you have all of this adrenaline running through your body that's designed for that. And this was the thing that later in my journey, I realized that if I could channel that energy into something that was positive, it was actually going to be a really huge advantage for me. So unfortunately, when I was in Germany doing auditions, I was playing at a pretty high level. I was almost 30 at the time, playing the horn pretty well. And I'd get into auditions and I think, I'm going to win this audition. It was a big radio job in one of the big cities in Germany. I'd walk into the audition and I'd step into the room and completely lose all confidence in my own ability. I would totally shrink. I'd forget how to breathe. I would forget how to play the notes. I would forget my cadenza. I played one audition where they asked me to play the cadenza and I played probably 4 notes of the cadenza that were right and about 400 of them that were made up. And I got to a point where I was like, I really need to do something about this. So I did a bit of reading and came across a book by Don Green called Audition Success, which I'm sure many of you know. It's a fantastic book. It's a very anecdotal book, but it's really great reading and I learned a lot from that. And it gave me some ideas. And my initial reaction to that book, being Australian, was, oh, this is just some, you know, in Australia, we, you know, and when I was younger, we thought the American culture was a little bit over the top. And I thought, this is just American cultural over the top, you know, it's all going to be great and you've got to do this and it's got to be amazing and I thought, this is just not me. What I realized after reading the book and thinking about it for a while was that it actually doesn't matter whether it's understated or overstated. It's what you can get yourself to believe. So, and buy into. So I thought, look, I'm not doing very well in these auditions. I'm not playing very well in auditions. I'm playing like maybe 50% of what I'm capable of doing. I need a plan. I need to do something. So I thought, okay, we'll try this. Let's try it. Let's buy into it and see what happens. So I bought into the plan. I started doing centering routine and I started, you know, implementing some of the things that Don was talking about. And I discovered that actually it gave me a lot of confidence and it distracted me from this thing that I had in auditions where I was judging myself playing while I was playing. I was like, well, that wasn't very good. Oh, no, that was a bit better. Oh, that wasn't good. Oh, you know, I wonder if they like it. I wonder if they think I'm any good. I hope this goes okay. All of this constant chatter that was going through my head, it suddenly became a lot more quiet when I had a routine and I had a plan. I formulated a plan for me on many levels. So for me, the start of the plan is centering routine. And that is a fundamental thing that I've probably used now for 15 years. And my centering routine, while it started from the basis of what Don Green has, and you can find Don Green's centering plan online, I'm sure, or probably on his website actually. And Don is absolutely, you know, fantastic with mental training. What I found is though and as will happen with everyone, initially I tried to follow the rules. I really tried to follow exactly what Don was saying and what the steps were, and I religiously go through those steps. And what happened was I became locked by having to follow the rules, and I wasn't actually focusing on what was actually the content of the centering process. So over the years, I've modified that centering process. I've reacted to how I react to the process. And now my centering process is a lot simpler for me, and it's very specific. It's less steps. It tends to be quicker, but I've practiced it a lot. And one of the really important things, and we talked about this on day one. The first day we talked about technique and the physical side of playing and how important it is to have a plan when you're practicing. This is really, really, really important for us to develop as instrumentalists. And then the second stage, of course, yesterday, where we talked about musicality and making a connection between the technical side and the musical side, and how it's important to make sure that this stream of musicality is running parallel to our development as musicians, as technical musicians, as instrumental players. Well, the third stream is the mental side, and that requires a significant amount of practice as well. If we neglect the mental side, we're not able to, as I discovered in Adelaide and I discovered in Germany, we're not able to activate all the great work that we do in the musical side and the technical side. So the mental side is something that, whether we like it or not, is going to affect us, because you're going into a concert with the brain, hopefully. I mean, most of us do. Sometimes I don't, but most of the time. And that brain is going to affect you. It's going to react to different things. So understanding how that works and having a plan and practicing the plan is really important. It's no good having a plan if you don't know how to execute the plan. So my plan starts with centering. And the more nervous that I am, the bigger the concert. If it's a big audition or if it's a solo concert, I will start my centering process very early in the day, sometimes even the night before, because I can't sleep so well. So I go through my centering process multiple times during the day. And the centering process early in the day will take longer than it will later on, because I'm wanting to make sure in my centering process that I go through all the stages of the centering and that I'm feeling really, really stable in my centering. And then as the concert gets closer, I'm going to do more regular, or more often I'm going to be doing that centering process to get myself back to my right brain. My right brain, understanding how our brain works, the left brain for people like Rupal is very important. Engineers, very left brain. It's about mathematics, it's about planning, it's about strategy, it's about organization, all of these sorts of things. And the left brain is very important for musicians. So our left brain is really important when we're practicing, figuring out problems, problem solving, organizing your plan, figuring out what you're going to practice. This is all left brain activity. It's very, very important. A lot of musicians, tend to be very right brained. And so that area is a bit of a challenge for us. So we do need to embrace how your left brain operates. It's important. But in performance, the left brain is pretty destructive. It's the brain that sits there and goes, you're going to muck the next bit up. Oh, this is going really, really well, Andrew. It's going so well that, you can't possibly keep playing this well for this long. And then also the left brain saying, what is going on with the second violins? Like, why are they playing out of tune? What is the story there? Or what did I have for lunch yesterday? So this is what goes on in concerts. Sadly, when you're about to play Tchaikovsky 5 solo in the second movement and you're listening to the strings, the last thing that you want to be thinking about is, oh my goodness, I forgot to put the cap back on the gas tank. Oh no, these are not things you want running through your left brain. I have a little guy.
Sorry, one quick question that someone asked. How do you know when you are centering? It sounds a little bit like it could be different for everybody. And could you talk about that?
Yeah, so the thing with centering is when it's something that's very important that you practice. You can't just turn up to a concert and go, I'm going to center today and I'm going to be in my center and it's going to be great. I'm going to flip to my right brain and off we go. Now, I'm in a slightly different situation. I've been practicing this for actually almost 20 years. And so I've actually trained myself to know that if I decide as part of my centering routine, I have a spot on the floor that I look at. As soon as I look at that spot, my body and my brain, almost like a switch, will go into centering mode and go into, so now we have to flip to the right brain. But that has taken me probably 15 years to get to that point of considerable practice. That's not saying that you can't do this within several weeks, but what it is saying is that I've trained my process pretty funny. So I can pretty much center in almost one breath. And my plan in concerts is that as soon as the conductor opens the door to walk on stage, my final centering will begin, and it will take basically 2 or 3 seconds. And by the time he gets to the podium, I know that I'm ready to go. And I actually get a surge of energy going through my body. I've trained myself to do that. I've practiced to do that. And I've practiced that it gives me confidence. So the trick with the centering, and a lot of people think, oh, you know, am I at my center? Am I at my right brain yet? I'm not really sure. I don't know if I'm in the right spot. This is pretty common. And I went through this for quite a long time. So the two things that are important to do in order to get around this, firstly, you have to practice your centering. And secondly, in order to make sure that you're at your center or at your right brain, the key is to make sure that you complete each step of the centering process. So whichever centering process you have, completing that step and not moving on until you're happy with how that process has been completed. So for my centering process, I find a spot on the floor, and this is a little bit different than the one that you'll read for Don Green's, but this is how I've distilled mine down over the years. So I look at a spot on the floor, and then I'm breathe, and I'll poke myself in the stomach. So my center in Qigong, the center is basically 2 inches below your belly button and 2 inches inside your body. So I'll poke myself in the stomach. It looks really weird if I'm sitting on stage. If you ever see this at the LA Phil, you'll know what I'm doing now. I'm not just trying to adjust my pants. Poke myself in the stomach and feel that's where my center is. And I imagine that I've got a little pebble or a pea in that spot in my stomach. And then I'm breathing, I'm focusing my breathing to breathe to that point. So while I'm looking at the floor, or I can do this with my eyes closed, but whatever happens, I don't look up, because up is going to trigger my left brain and it's going to make me more nervous. So I'm looking down and I'm breathing, and I'm feeling that breathing. Now, until I'm really happy that every breath is going into that spot and out again, and I'm really noticing that my breathing is nice and relaxed and open and free and simple, I'm not going to move on to the next stage. If that takes me 10 breaths, fine. If it takes me 1 breath, fine. But the goal is to make sure that I'm focusing, that I can feel the breath, and I can feel the breath going to that center. So basically what we're doing is really just providing a significant distraction for your left brain. We're really focusing on this simplest element and taking time to do that. Don't be in a rush, which is why when I'm under stress, if I'm in if I've got a concerto, or if I've got an audition, or if we're playing Mahler 5, I'll start the centering process early in the day, because it will take longer because I'm more nervous, and it will take more time for me to go through these stages. But I want to have that time. I want to be able to get through. I don't want to start my centering process 2 minutes before the start of the concert and find out that I can't get through the first stage, because that would not help me. So the first stage of breathing. The second stage is I want to keep that breathing going. I want to still be aware of that, and I'm going to scan my body for tension. So I'm going to start at the top of my head, and I'm going to gradually scan down. And when I run into some tension, I'm just going to spend some time there to release that tension. So I'm focusing on feeling all of my body from the top of my head down to the tip of my toes. Now, again, when I've been practicing, I've been playing a lot of concerts, and I'm feeling confident about things, that will take me 1 breath. But if I'm feeling uptight and nervous and I haven't been practicing, maybe haven't played a concert for a while, or the concert's extra stressful, it'll take me some extra time. But I'm in no rush. I don't want to be in any panic to have to I've just got to go through that next breath and then move on. That is not going to help me get to my right brain. So once I get through that stage, then the next stage is that I have a clear idea. Before I start centering, I have a clear idea of why I'm centering. And then this is the stage where I'll have a key word that will trigger my centering, will trigger me to release into the performance, or into the finish of the centering process. So my default is go for it or let it go. They're the two phrases that I use for me to get me to really be confident and go for it in concerts. So once I've gone through the scanning stage, then I'll keep breathing. And what I'm wanting to do is I want to feel that pebble or the little pea in my tummy. So while I'm continuing to breathe and I've scanned myself, scanned my body, as I'm doing my let it go, I'm saying let it go. And I want to feel all of the energy, the nervous energy is building up like a little fireball at that point in the pebble in my stomach. And when I'm convinced that all of the energy is sitting in that spot, then I can give it one last let it go. And I imagine that I've got laser beams coming out of my eyes, and all of the fireball goes through my eyes and into the spot on the ground. And I've released that energy. And then I feel really pumped, really excited, really ready to go and focused. And then I know when I feel that, and I feel this rush of energy actually into my chest, then I know that I'm ready to go and perform. So that's my process, and that works for me. And I think what's important that I've learned over the years, and it's changed, it's morphed over time, is that everyone's different, and everyone has to discover their own way of doing this. But it's a really useful tool for me, and it's something that I have to say I use every concert. And if I don't do my centering process, if I rush through the process, if I don't complete the steps, I really notice it in performance. I really notice that I feel a lot less stable, a lot less confident, and I recover from mistakes a lot slower. So this brings us to Bob. So we talked about the left brain. My left brain has a name. Anyone who's seen the Horn Hangout with me, with Sarah Willis and I, will have met Bob. He actually doesn't always look like a stormtrooper, but Bob is a little guy that when he talks to me, and he talks to me in concerts, he does all the stuff that I said has happened to me in concerts, and he'll come out at certain times, sometimes when I least expect them. What I don't want to do is engage with Bob and have a conversation, and I certainly don't want to have a fight with him, because all that he's doing is he's distracting me from what I need to do. So I have a very, very, very quick conversation. The quick conversation goes like this. Thanks very much, Bob. It's great. I really appreciate your work. You sit on my shoulder and I'll get back to you after the concert. I've got stuff to do. And that diffuses that situation and compartmentalizes Bob, and he sits on my left shoulder. And then he's fine. He's happy to sit there like a little leprechaun, and I can get on with my work and focus on what I'm doing. Now, this is something that probably sounds crazy to most people, and that's fine. But it's something that it works very well for me. And it's something that I found I needed to really address, because anything to do with your playing, like, so if it's a technical issue, anything to do with your musicality, anything to do with your mental thing, you have to be aware of what your weaknesses are in order to be able to change them. And I was really, really aware of the fact that I got distracted a lot in concerts. Like, I could play the horn pretty well, and when things were going well, it was pretty good. But I would get distracted, and then I'd make one mistake. And who's gone through this? You make one mistake, and then you go, oh my goodness, oh, I made a mistake. And then you make another mistake. And oh God, now I've got to do something really special to make up for it. And then you make 4 or 5 mistakes because you're doing something that's completely not in the plan, and it's just random. And then you end up feeling pretty horrible about yourself. So I needed to put a plan in place where that was, that I would get back on track. And this was one of the steps that I took to make sure, okay, Bob is gonna be part of the game, and we need to know that when he comes, he's got somewhere to stay, and that we can avoid that distraction, and that I can get back to sticking with the plan. So mentally, I also have it's very important that I stay not judging myself while I'm playing. I just want to be executing what I want to execute. I have a plan going into the performance, and I want to make sure that I execute that plan and I stick to that plan. There's nothing I can do about what's just happened. I can't change the fact that I just split the first note of the last movement of Mile 5. Fortunately, that hasn't happened yet, but it will happen one day, I'm sure. So nothing's gonna change that fact in the past. But what I can do is I can stick to the plan. I've prepared the plan the best way that I can. I've got to stick to that plan. And it makes performing a lot simpler, and it gives you something to focus on. And it's really important, because the worst thing you can do is try to fix something that you can't fix and that's already happened, because you're going to have a lot more stuff that you're going to need to fix if that's the case, because you're going to make a lot more mistakes. So planning and routine, again, what I was saying is, like, it's super important that I have a plan for each performance. So I spend time in rehearsal figuring out what are the elements that are going to either distract me or that I need to be focusing on in concert. So if we're playing a Brahms symphony, I need to understand, okay, so in this moment, the bassoon is handing off the melody to me, or I'm playing a duet with the bassoon. This is where my focus has to be. This is where I want to be locking into. And then if the strings are playing something rhythmical, I need to be making sure. So I have a plan for each concert. And this is the same for auditions as well. It's important that I've got a plan for each excerpt, and then I've got a plan overall for how I want to structure each round. We can spend a lot of time talking about audition preparation, which we will in the course, of course. But auditions are something that over time I realized that it's simply a matter of planning and focusing on what are the elements that you can control, and a lot of that has to do with having a good routine of how you prepare the excerpts and how you're going to present them, and keeping it as simple as possible. Visualization for me is a really important thing, and again, it goes along with the musical side that we talked about yesterday. Visualizing not only the music, but also how you see yourself performing. Before many auditions, I would have the opportunity to walk into the venue, to be able to get into the venue and see, where I was going to be doing the audition. This is a fantastic thing to do if you have the opportunity, because you can take that with you and you can actually practice walking into the hall, feeling confident and see yourself playing great in front of the panel. For my audition in the Melbourne Symphony, I flew down to Melbourne 2 weeks before the audition and went to the venue, actually stood on the stage exactly the position where the audition was going to be, and played a bunch of excerpts. And then the night before the audition, I managed to actually get into the venue. The venue was open. So I walked in, they'd already set up the audition for the panel and for the whole process. So I then went and sat in every chair on the panel and visualized me being a panel member, listening to me play, saying how great that was. What a fantastic candidate. We want to vote for this guy. And so I took that away from me and I practiced visualizing those elements that evening, giving myself confidence and giving myself the knowledge that, now I know what to expect. So visualization gives us an opportunity of sort of giving us this deja vu feeling that we've actually experienced it before, even though we hadn't. So I want to, when I was also for this audition, I walked from every practice room on the walk to the stage, and then I could replay that walk. And so when I was actually making that walk, it was something I'd done before. It was comfortable, it was familiar. So often we can't do that. We can't get into venues and have the opportunity to experience what the hall would be like. But in our mind, we can see ourselves playing well. We can see ourselves playing each excerpt, playing each piece in a beautiful way, exactly how we want to. And it really helps our learning of the piece, but it also really helps us to be able to express things clearly and also discover where your weaknesses are. If you've ever done any visualization, you'll find that the first time you do visualization, you make a lot of mistakes, right? It's pretty bad. Like you're playing along and you're like, whoa, that was rough. So that's good. Then you're actually giving yourself an opportunity to fix stuff. And as we talked about yesterday with the musical side, the musical image that you have in your head is the one that is going to be the strongest on the day. So taking the instrument away, taking that reliance on the instrument producing your result and making your brain actually do the work makes you hear things and be able to have the clarity much stronger. Okay.
I thought it was really interesting how you mentioned not just visualizing yourself in the position, but also the other side of the equation. Sometimes, when you're interviewing for a new job, from my own perspective, I sometimes, think about it from, and even Andrew finds this hilarious, but I, sometimes interview myself and basically have like a full conversation with myself about me asking myself questions and then answering them well, and then giving myself feedback about how good of an answer that was. Kind of like your visualization.
Yeah. And this actually goes to the next point of positive self-talk. So with the visualization, we need to spend time actually talking to ourselves in a way that's actually nice. Who spends a lot of time when you make a mistake? Who says, you're an idiot. Why did you do that? I'm so hopeless. Why can't I do this? What's wrong with me? We tend to do that quite easily. As performers, as horn players, we're very good at bashing ourselves. But what's really, really important, particularly when we're preparing for an audition or a big performance, is actually giving ourselves confidence. And we talked about that a little bit yesterday. And it's an important thing to practice. So while it's important in our practice to be honest with ourselves and be critical and self-critical and address the issues that we need to address to get better, when we get to the performing side, it's really important to be nice to yourself. We've got conductors who'll stare at you and, go crazy. And then you've got soloists who'll tell you off, and you've got people from management who will, make sure that, that you're doing the right thing, and everyone's sort of looking for a way to tell you to do something. We need to be kind to ourselves, and leading into performance, you need to say, look, you sound great. This is going to be a great experience. I'm going to go in there and nail it and have a great time. And the more that we teach ourselves to do this, the better our performance is going to be. So going into a concert, it's really important for me not to think what could go wrong, or I hope this goes all right, but to actually visualize myself and talk to myself and say, this is going to be a fantastic concert. You're going to do a great job, and the audience is going to love it, and everyone's going to think you're fantastic. And the more that you can talk to yourself in that way, the more positive the outcome is going to be, the more confidence you're going to have. So again, what we were saying yesterday is, the top sporting people in the world, one of the biggest things about the great athletes is that they have confidence. If you ever see an interview with Michael Jordan or LeBron James or anyone who's at the top of their field, you won't hear them say, yeah, look, I wasn't that good, and I'm sort of, I really doubt my ability, and I make a lot of mistakes. They may say, like someone like Jordan, there's a very famous quote, he's missed 30,000 shots in his career, or more than that, or whatever it was, and missed all these buzzer beaters, but internally he has an incredible confidence. And the great performers are the same as this. If you were to talk to any of the great soloists in the world, they have nerves. They suffer from nerves, of course, but they have a real strong confidence about their own performance and their own abilities, and they tell themselves about it. So we need to understand that this is an important part of treating ourselves well and treating your brain well, so that it's going to deliver when you need it the most.
Can I also just add that it's important for you to obviously do that for yourself, but it's also great when you have a support system around you, and just, being able to talk with others and your mentors or peers or family, and getting that support as well along that same path.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we often go through our lives as musicians, and particularly as horn players, in a very solitary way. We spend a lot of time in the practice room, and it's pretty easy for us to sort of beat ourselves about the head when something isn't working, or we're struggling with a problem. And I think one of the really important things that I find in my teaching that I really value is the ability to have conversations with the students, and to be able to share the experiences that they're going through, and help them to understand that it's normal what we're all going through, but also to be able to listen and to so that they can share. And it's really important. Rupal has to deal with this as well. Like, if I go through times where my confidence may not be as high as I want it to be, and Rupal is not a musician, but she's a great mentor and a great person to bounce ideas off of. And also, just having someone in a different field who doesn't understand it actually gives a different perspective. So what is a huge issue for me, in the orchestra, I might be having this horrible problem, and I say, it's just something's not working, or I'm feeling frustrated, and I say to Rupal, this is really bad. I mean, it's just not working, everything. And she'll be able to put that into perspective very quickly, that, one issue on the horn is not going to be the end of the world. And because I've managed to survive until I'm in my mid 30s now. No, if anyone believes that, you're kidding. I've managed to survive my career this long. I'm probably going to be able to figure it out. And it just sometimes just needs that support system to say, look, it's okay. You'll figure it out. Just take a step back and it'll be all right. So fake it. This is a really important thing that actually, we touched on. Who's ever gone into a concert and just doesn't feel they have any confidence? Because like, oh my God, I know I've put in all the work, and I know tonight's not going to go well. It's just going to be a mess, and I just want to get through this. So I have a trick for you, and it's a trick that I use, and it works pretty much every time. So I go through this periodically, and fortunately it's not that often, but it does happen, and it normally happens on the, for the biggest concerts, for when I'm playing concertos or, big Mahler symphonies. I'll have some level of self-doubt that'll creep in, and I won't address it. I won't go through my centering process early enough, or I won't give myself enough positive self-talk. I'll just be racing through the day and get to the concert and realize that I haven't put in enough time, and then I'm feeling insecure. And then I'll start my centering process under stress, and I'll race through that, and I still feel stressed, and I still feel not confident. And I'm like, how am I going to go with this? So I had this recently. I had this a few years ago. I did a concerto with a Philharmonic. I was playing Mozart 4, and Tom Hooton on the first half of the program was playing Haydn First Trumpet Concerto. And anyone who knows Tom is a meticulous preparer and is a very intense person. He's fantastic. And I learn a lot from Tom, and hopefully Tom learned something from me, but I wonder sometimes. But Tom is a phenomenal trumpet player, great musician. So Tom was playing in the first half, and he played his thing, and I made the mistake. I was sort of feeling a little bit edgy anyway, because I'm playing concerto, and it's Mozart. Mozart is one of those things where you really, want to be pristine and everything just absolutely in its right place. And my chops weren't feeling that great that day. And I'd got into this little bit of a negative cycle during the day. I was like, oh, I'm not sure how this is going to go. I made the mistake of turning on the speaker in my room, and Tom was playing the Haydn. And it was spectacular. Absolutely spectacular. And of course, everything that you hear through a speaker at Walt Disney Concert Hall sounds way better than what is on stage anyway. So not only was he playing great, but then I had to listen through a speaker, which is like, it was like a magical filter, and he sounded like $1 million, the greatest trumpet playing, greatest musicianship I've ever heard in my life. And I'm like, I've got to go on after this. This is a disaster. Like, what is going to happen here? And I was like, hey, Andrew, you got to go through your plan. Stick to the plan, go through your centering. You're going to be fine. You play okay. It'll be all right. So I went through, and I couldn't get out of my own head. I went through the first stage of centering, and my brain was like, you're going to fall flat on your face, mate, and this is just going to be embarrassing for everyone. And I thought, oh my goodness. And this is like, half an hour before I'm playing. So he finishes his piece, and I made the second mistake of the night by walking out of my dressing room into a throng of people who were all telling Tom Hooton how great he was. And I thought, oh dear, now I've got to go back in, I've got to focus and, play this concert. So I went back in the room, and it was terrible. I was even more insecure than I was while he was playing the Haydn. I thought, this is going to be a disaster. So I sent it again, and I just couldn't get there. And okay, so I'll go through my tricks. So my first trick was, I'm going to, center and really force myself to go for it. I got to that, and I was not feeling good. The second one is, when I'm feeling good, I'm a superhuman version of me. I'm Andrew Bain on steroids. I'm the greatest horn player in the world. So I tried that one, but because I'd lost confidence in myself, I couldn't imagine a superhuman version of me being that good. So that didn't work either. And this is getting to 5 minutes before I have to go on and play Mozart. And I'm like, oh dear, this is not good. So fortunately, I have one more trick. And the trick is to fake it. And by fake it, I mean, now I tend to go to this person as a default, because he always looks very confident. And he plays great, of course. But he always looks very confident, and he no matter whether he's nervous or not, you couldn't tell. And that's Stefan Dorr. So I become Stefan Dorr. And I actually mimic him. I'm actually really good at this. If anyone gets, I won't demonstrate it for you guys today, but if anyone gets the opportunity to see me be Stefan Dorr, it's actually pretty good. Like, I reckon I'm one of the great Stefan Dorr impersonators of all time. So I become Stefan Dorr, and I'm like, that's what we're going to be tonight, Andrew. Stefan Dorr is going out. You're on the bench. You're just going to stay in the dressing room, and Stefan Dorr is going to go out, and he's going to play the concert. So I centered as Stefan Dorr. I imagined that I was Stefan Dorr. I embodied Stefan Dorr. I went onto stage, and 2 minutes into the performance of being Stefan Dorr, I was like, okay, I can do this. I can do this. And so Andrew came back, and the concert went great. Everything was fine, and it was terrific. So that's that for me is the trick. Now, I probably shared too much in that, but it's the truth, so it's okay. right? So my suggestion would be whoever your horn hero or instrumental hero soloist is, you can be them. It's fine. Your brain doesn't really know the difference if you act well enough. And it will give you the confidence that you need in that short term to be able to get through things and give yourself the result. Now, I look at when I'm playing, I look at back on video of me playing, I think, oh, that guy looks like he knows what he's doing. That's pretty good. Like, rarely do I think, well, I know what he was feeling, but what he looks like is like, oh, he looks like he's pretty much in control. So that's normally my default, is to go to that guy. Go to the guy who looks pretty cool, doesn't look like he's sweating at all, there's no stress, and it's just everything's nice and easy. That's what I want to go to. But sometimes as a last resort, if that doesn't work, you can be somebody else. It's no problem. Okay, that's enough of me sharing. On to the last couple. So recovery. So one of the important things that I've learned in my journey to playing the horn in an orchestra of a pretty reasonable level and surviving is the concept that things go wrong and understanding that and embracing that. I've never played in an orchestra where something hasn't gone wrong. I remember a concert with the LA Philharmonic where we had an earthquake in the middle of the concert. 20-second earthquake with the entire, it felt like we were on a boat. And the whole stage was going like this, and there was stuff falling out of the roof, and it was terrible. Now, as is the case in Los Angeles, earthquakes, people are like, yeah, whatever, it's an earthquake, it's fine. House is falling down, it's okay, keep moving. And this was pretty much the case on that night. Charles Dutoit was conducting. We were doing Daphnis and Chloe's suite, and he got pissed because half the orchestra stopped playing. And he didn't, because he was jumping around on the podium, he didn't feel the earthquake. So he was like, what are you guys doing? Why are you stopped playing? And the whole thing almost ground to a halt. And then it ramped up again. There was a flute solo. It started, the earth stopped shaking, and everyone kept going. No one left the stage. A couple of people left in the audience, but we kept going. And it was amazing that an orchestra, I was so proud of our orchestra that night because the level of focus there was to basically go through a near-death experience potentially and then continue playing an incredibly difficult Ravel piece was amazing. And it was a testament to the mental stability and mental focus of my colleagues to be able to make that happen. And so this is the thing that makes me realize, like, things are going to go wrong in concerts. And it's important, and I understand that when I'm going into concerts, something's going to go wrong, but I have to stick to the plan. Stick to the plan, stay focused, and everything will be fine. And that leads to the last point, which is stay in the moment. And staying in the moment is exactly what it sounds like. Not trying to get ahead and think, oh, I've played a great Mahler symphony, I'm fantastic 5 minutes from the end. Keep dealing with everything as it comes, in the moment that it's coming. Forget what happened 2 seconds ago. Focus what you're doing at that time and keep going until you get to the end. When the conductor puts his hands down, the audience starts clapping, that's when you can finish. It's the same with auditions. There are so many auditions that you hear where people go, great, they're doing fantastically, they have the last 3 excerpts, and then it's a crash and burn because they got ahead of themselves. They started thinking, I'm going to win this job. I can do this. I'm going to be the winner. I'm going to be the principal trumpet of the Zurich Philharmonic. It's going to be great. And then they get ahead of themselves and they don't stay in the moment. So it's a really, really important thing. There's again, Bob Rotella talks about this in his book, Golf is Not a Game of Perfect, about staying in the moment and staying focused.
So we're going to shift a little bit in talking about investing in yourself and what that means, how Andrew and I have done that in our careers, why we think it's really important, and how do you do that when the industry is sort of morphing into different things and changing around us as a result of the pandemic and who knows, as a result in general. So we don't know what's going to happen. It's hard to predict, but what we do know is that the uncertainty is inevitable. We will have to continue to deal with this. And oftentimes that can lead to, you know, maybe paralysis or not doing anything. But instead of stepping back, Andrew and I both in our careers, looking at him over here, we've actually used that time to step forward, leap forward actually, and develop a skill here that we want to talk to you guys about that we think could help you as well, especially right now. It's really a shift in mindset because, similar to the fight or flight concept that we were just talking about, when things are uncomfortable and difficult around us, you have to kind of choose, well, you have your natural way of how you respond to things, but if need be, you might want to consider a shift in the mindset towards fight. You guys know Andrew's background really well, but I've worked in large companies, like he said, GE and Ford, and these are companies that have been around a very, very long time, that have gone through recessions and downturns and, booms and bursts and all sorts of different ways in how the market has shifted and changed for them. And they've managed to stay afloat and actually to innovate, something we were doing very well at GE and staying on the forefront of things, and especially in the environmental industry where I was working. So with that expertise and then Andrew's own personal experience, we've come up with adapt and compete. And this is what we think you need to, this is what it means from our perspective, to invest in yourself. And especially when it's uncertain times, but in general, just any time. So we're going to talk a little bit about how you do that and what that means and how you can do what you can do right now. All right. So adapt. Like we said, change is inevitable. We need to be able to respond around it. This is a night market, just to help you sort of visualize that you are in a market. We were talking about how you were, I was trying to tell you you're a business yesterday. Well, now I'm telling you you're in a market, and there's a lot of things being offered and being bought and sold, and how those transactions and things are happening. And adapting and doing well in a changing market means you have to kind of know what's going on around you. I think many of you probably have heard of Darwin's quote about survival of the fittest, and which is all about, adapting to your environment. And the full quote is actually, it's not the strongest that survive, nor the most intelligent, but the most responsive to change. And so, his concept of survival of the fittest is really about understanding when change is happening, because we have to recognize it and also notice it, acknowledge it, that, things are changing. And then we have to make a conscious mindset that we're going to adapt to it. We're going to fight, we're going to change, we're going to modify things that we're doing and look at what do we need to do to shift. This is something that I've done throughout my career. It basically means adjusting yourself according to what you're seeing going on in the market. And if you're providing a service for the market, as you are with your music, are you delivering what is being asked in the way that it's being asked, and making yourself as interesting for employers as possible? Andrew, this concept is, I know, very general, but could you help us can you give me an example of something you did to adapt to a changing time in your career, in your long 25 years career?
Yeah, well, the most recent one is, the recording industry has changed in COVID, because you can't record in a studio at the moment. So I've adapted by buying stuff like this, and it can be done actually quite inexpensively, and making it possible for contractors to actually call and composers to actually utilize my skill set from home. I think this is one of the areas that we that I've sort of learned to adapt. The other one is, there's some pretty obvious ones actually, like in this time, like we've upgraded our Zoom account, and we've upgraded our internet and our internet equipment. We've bought a bunch of things to make it so that we're actually able to actually operate from home in a functional way, so that we can actually do the stuff that we need to do in an effective way. We've actually had to go through 2 lots of internet upgrades, because it's been a busy time.
Well, and so I want to hear from you guys. There's some big changes that have happened in the industry recently, but also just generally speaking, pre-pandemic. Let me know in the chat, what are some of the changes you guys are seeing in the industry? Because like I said, first we have to recognize and acknowledge that there is change. Yeah, lots of changes. things are moving online. There's a lot more content from more people because of the online digital platforms that people are going on to. Yeah, Zoom lessons, getting a chance to teach from different, or getting a chance to learn from different people because of the online option. More chamber music. Some things have been canceled from the pandemic, so there might be a shift in that. Good, everyone's aware. Yes, there are changes. There's also changes in the way, the universities are putting their education programs together. There's changes in the way the administrative teams at orchestras are managing budgets. There's a lot of changes, and not just from one perspective, but the industry overall. If each of these little tents in this night market is a different aspect of this market, think about all the changes that are happening around us. And how do you know? So we talked about that you need to be aware of the change. What are some things you guys do to become aware of change and to notice what are the trends that are going on? And while you're thinking of that, Andrew, I would love for you to answer this question too. In order to adapt, we have to know what's going on around us and how the market is changing. And you talked about how you put a recording studio downstairs. But I'm now asking you, how did you know that was a trend you needed to adapt in that way? How did you figure that out?
This is the thing, is we've all got access to all this information. We can do a bit of research, get online and have a look at what people are doing. It's pretty obvious that when the studios closed down, that there's going to be there still has to be recording work done. So how are they going to do that? How do we plan that? There are also going to be lessons that are going to need to be taught, or there are still people that are going to want to learn. So how are you going to provide something that's actually going to be beneficial to people? And in which method of teaching? There's a lot more stuff where there's been like one of the really valuable tools, and what we're also going to be doing in the course is the idea of someone's going to record something at home, and then they'll be able to present that to a teacher, and then you'll be able to be broken down and a lot of suggestions and sent back. So it's just sort of being aware of the current situation, being aware of where things are going. If everything is going online, how can you utilize that for your best benefit?
One other thing that I've noticed you do, and well, you and Sarah's also very good at this. You guys talk all the time. Is you're keeping up with, you're talking to people and you're talking about what's going on. Andrew has this monthly Colburn party too with some of his students, and we spend a lot of that time talking about what's going on in the industry. So those are some examples of, and you guys are putting in some really great different ways that you're also social media, obviously very helpful, websites, researching. It does take sort of an active effort to go out and do it, and to actually be thinking about it in terms of, is this a trend, or is this just something people are doing right now? Is it going to go away? Is it something that I should consider shifting in? Do I have something that I could offer in this way? And also thinking about it from the other perspective, from the people who are hiring and the people who are paying. We would call them customers in the business world, but you probably think of them more as employers. But those customers, what's changing for them, and how do you help make their lives easier, their jobs easier? And like Andrew said, well, the recording studio and those options were limited, so he, putting one in the house was helping his employer do their job. What a great way to adapt. So that's an example of kind of knowing what's going on in the market. You do that by kind of looking around you, asking questions, talking to people. Your relationships matter. We call this networking in the business world, but just basically it's building relationships, and then just being active and thinking about it, and then looking at what you can do to solve your customer/employers' problems by helping them adjust to the change that's been going on in the industry. Understanding the change around you, figuring out how to help solve a problem for either your customer or employer. Simple concept, guys, but it makes a big difference. And, Darwin said it first, so we're not taking any credit here, but we really think that that's what you need to survive. But as we said before, it's not just about adapting. Andrew and I have adapted throughout our careers and shifted and changed and invested in ourselves to adapt. But, you know, with all respect to Darwin, which I have a lot of respect for, it's not enough. We think you need to compete. And so let's talk about what that means. Adapting, yes. We need to take it one step further and compete. And this is how we're going to not only survive the changes around us and, you know, get through that uncertain time, but we're going to actually thrive in them. Competing is not new. You guys are very competitive in this market. You know, you have your individual product and your individual musical offering that you're providing, and they're all different and unique. And I think that is the foundation of competition, is finding something different. So, you know, it's not a zero net sum game. It doesn't mean there needs to be one winner and one loser. We just need to identify something that's different and unique about you. And it doesn't, and honestly, it can be something that already exists. It could be something new. It could be something temporary. These are all things that when you do figure out what they are, they're going to fit into your personal brand. And like I said, we're a business, we're going to consider you guys as businesses for your musical careers. We're going to make sure that we're staying relevant, and then we're going to put out a brand in the business world. But for you guys, it's basically your reputation, and put those differentiating things that are different about you in this brand. And we want to communicate that out. So I actually had a job at GE. It was in their CIA division, which is pretty cool. Well, I thought at the time. It was a competitive intelligence analyst. And we spent 3 months kind of analyzing all the competitors, what they were doing, what was going on in the market. Every time, I also had a role at GE where I was figuring out how to go into new markets and build wind farms, actually. And I was analyzing countries. You know, should we put wind farms in Vietnam? Yes or no? That was the question I was answering. So, you know, going into a new area and understanding the industry, you know, is a big part of it. And then competing and figuring out, well, what are you going to offer that's going to be different? You know, your employers or your customers have a lot of people to choose from. So how are you going to showcase what makes you different and special and why they should choose you? And that gets into, you know, why we want to generate income, which we won't talk about here, but is a part of the bigger picture. The point is we need to find something different, like I said. And then once you know what's different, I'm going to use an example of just always being on time, you know, or you could also say always being prepared, or always answering your phone. You know, just something you would pick that's different about yourself. And then maybe your musical excellence as well, obviously. So there's all of those. Then you look at, well, you ask yourself sort of so what? And how does that difference benefit the person who is hiring me, my customer or employer? And we, in the business world, we would translate it, well, you'll be able to do, you know, you're going to be able to save money, or you're going to be able to get more, you know, of your goals, or do all of those things. So think about it as well from your employer perspective. If I'm punctual, that means that, you know, if I'm working for an orchestra or festival or anything, actually, punctuality is very important for you guys. That's just making their lives easier. You know, you're not going to be somebody that they have to call and deal with. Okay, and that's something you want to be putting, and if you do it consistently, it can be a part of your brand. I want to hear from Andrew. What might you think of when you can come up with an example of how you've found something different and found a way to compete?
Well, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is what I was going to mention before, is like when I was in Sydney in the 90s, mobile phone was not something that musicians had a lot of, which is now impossible to imagine. But I was one of the first freelancers in Sydney to have a cell phone. And I jumped from about number 20 on the freelance list to number 1 in about a week, because everyone knew that they could get hold of me and they could get an answer straight away. So I was the first person they called, because everyone else would have an answering machine back at their house, and they would only be able to give an answer at the end of the day. So that was really helpful for me. But other things, ideas that I had for this would be, you know, the being early one is really important. Making sure that you give yourself plenty of time, and that you're always making the job of the person who's hiring you easy. So respond quickly to emails, you know, asking you if you want work. and be on time. They're the two really important things. And then just one suggestion: if you're a freelancer, always have a set of black clothes in your car, or a black clothes and a white shirt, because but in living in a city like Los Angeles, if you get a call at 6 o'clock at night to come in and play a concert somewhere, and you have to go home through peak hour traffic, it's going to be rough. So if you've got those things in the car, I know the studio guys will always have a Wagner tuber in the car. That's always a handy thing to have too.
What kinds of things you guys are doing to go above and beyond? Because that's really what competing is. It's just above and beyond ways you can provide benefit to your employer. And there was a good comment in there about, recognizing that it's different for different employers, but being easy to work. Andrew mentioned a bunch of great examples. So again, it's not really competing in the sense that, there's a winner and a loser. It's competing in the sense that here's something that's different, that's above and beyond that I'm going to do. And I'm going to do it consistently. And I'm going to make sure it translates to a benefit to my customer. And that increases your value. And we can talk about value proposition another time, but it's just a big word. But basically, yeah, this is what we do and what Andrew and I have seen work for us and the companies that we worked with over a long period of years, that has allowed us to stay on the forefront of change and continue to be competitive and get, new and exciting opportunities. So here's the quick summary, guys. Adapt and compete, trying to keep it really simple. You have to adapt just to stay relevant. That's just, keeping up with what's going on and the market needs and understanding what those changes are, and then customizing it for yourself. You want to figure out what makes sense for you specifically based on what your goals are and who your employer and customers are, and then validating it and talking about it with that business coach or mentor that we talked about you should have yesterday, making sure that you're on the right track and, spending your time and money wisely so that it is helping you further your career and, helping you stay competitive. And then we also talked about actually competing and finding something that's different about you, thinking about the so what, so what, that's great, but what does that mean for the person who is paying me, and how does it help them do their job? And then putting that into a personal brand of yours and being consistent about it and building a reputation around, always being prepared and punctual and delivering high quality and whatever else you feel, needs to be a part of that brand. Any other final words, Andrew, on adapt and compete?
No, I don't think so. Don't warm up loudly on stage.
I'm sure you have like pages and pages of tips of things. So, that is what we think it means to invest, looking at paying attention to what's going on around you, adapting, competing, and really investing in yourself to make sure that you are not only delivering what is needed, but going above and beyond in some way that's making you sort of special and unique and, really beneficial for the people who are hiring. And that is kind of the foundation of this, or, the company that we've created, the Invested Musician. And we really do believe it starts with you. You are that first investment. And, as we talked about kind of in the beginning, and to kind of wrap up, is sort of where you can take it from here.
Yeah. I mean, check out the program on the website there on the link. We'd love to hear from you if you're interested in being involved in the program, but if you have any input into the program, you've obviously received and shared a lot of great ideas in the last 3 days. And if you feel as though you want to continue doing that, we would love to help you. And we want to tailor a program for everybody who would be interested to get the best out of this experience.
I was just going to add that, we kind of picked this is one program option that we had considered of many, because we got a lot of really great feedback from all of you on, areas that you want to work on and, things that you think would be useful. And this is really, this is kind of as we were putting this together, and we've been doing this for several years, actually, we've really tried to put a kind of comprehensive approach to it. So it's not just about the playing, but we've added the business tax and finance stuff, and how you generate additional income and keep jobs and be a good section player and build your career. And so we've, you know, we didn't cover everything, and this program, MasterCourse, won't be for everybody. And we actually have limited registration as well, because we want to really keep it intense and dedicated one-on-one time that you really need to be successful. So, but, you know, if this program isn't the right fit, we will be trying to come up with some different ideas down the line too.
Yeah, so both links are there. The link to the program if you want more information about the program, and then the link to for us just to have an opportunity to have a chat to you about ideas that you have that you'd like to see involved in a program. Recordings for this, as Rupal said at the beginning, Rupal and I will be editing all of these videos over the weekend, and they'll be up. We hope over the weekend or very early next week. The edited version of all 3 days of this. And so we'll send you a link for those of you who have registered. We'll send you a link to that. And if you still haven't registered but want those recordings, it'd be great if you can just fill in the registration so that we can be in touch with you.
Great. So yeah, stay connected with us on Facebook, Invested Musician, and we are working on our website. Thank you.
Thanks.